Good morning to you. We're having another in our series of Rethink conversations on the programme today. This is a whole series of bits of conversation you've heard over the last couple of days on 5 Live, here on Radio 4 and on the BBC World Service as well. We are imagining the world post-COVID, the positive possibilities, things that ought to change, things that will change. And this morning, in the company of Brian Eno, no less, we're going to examine the future of leadership and how it might look in the years ahead. We've got some fantastic contributors to that conversation. Dame Heather Rabbatts, Inga Beale, former CEO of Lloyds of London, and Professor Ngaire, founding Dean of the Blavatnik School of Government at Oxford University. Heather Rabbatts, of course, is chair of Time's Up UK, former local government chief executive, once too a director of the Football Association. So some very high-powered guests with us. Let's start then with the thoughts of the musician and artist Brian Eno, asking what the response to the pandemic has taught us about leadership and how what we want and need from our future leaders might now have changed.
If we've learned one thing from the coronavirus experience, it's that a certain style of government and leadership, a style that's dominated the last few years, isn't going to be of any use to us at all in the 21st century. The countries that have suffered worse from COVID all share a single governmental style. Macho, media-savvy authoritarian leaders whose primary talent is self-promotion, who lie freely when it suits them, who disregard scientific advice if it doesn't enhance their own claims. These leaders gain power by manufacturing threats. Mexicans, immigrants, Muslims, Europeans, liberals, whatever you like, to create fake emergencies in which they can appear as saviours. But in the face of an actual threat, coronavirus, all that macho posturing proves to be worse than useless. What was needed was preparation, expertise, cooperation, and good data. All complete mysteries to the macho mind. Contrast the performance of America, England and Brazil, currently 1, 2 and 3 in the mortality charts, with that of, say, Germany, New Zealand and Taiwan, who've had much better results. All those 3 countries have female leaders, as do many of the other nations with better than average outcomes from COVID. The nations that have done well spend more time listening to their scientists, apparently, than to their ideologues, and don't consider evidence as a challenge to their manhood. It's to their examples that we must look for a future, because we're running out of futures. By that I mean we're running out of choices about what kind of world we might inhabit. The urgency of climate change is propelling us towards 2 starkly contrasting visions. The first is the billionaire's utopia, where a few rich people secure themselves behind strong walls, while the rest of us collapse in a fireball. The other vision is our only chance, where we rethink our institutions and global arrangements, so that in dealing with the upcoming disruptions of climate change and pandemics, we build something new, something better than we have now. This sounds idealistic, but in fact, it's the only option. We have to make a society that works in the long term by valuing all its different intelligences, by engaging everybody rather than excluding most. It's a future built on cooperation and inclusion, not division. We've seen the first green shoots of it in the better responses to COVID and in the proliferation of anti-discrimination activism, which could also be called pro-inclusion activism. If we want to live in a stable, creative society, we need to rethink things so that everybody in it feels welcomed and valued. The more people have an investment in society, the more they'll want to nurture and improve it. This isn't about the winners being generous enough to share a bit of their spoils with the losers. It's about realizing that a world with a few winners and a lot of losers isn't a tenable world.
Brian Eno with his thoughts on what the future might hold in terms of our thoughts about leadership and who we want to be in power and in charge. So my lineup this morning: Dame Heather Rabbatts, the chair of Time's Up UK, Inga Beale, former CEO of Lloyds of London, and Professor Ngaire, the founding dean of the Blavatnik School of Government at Oxford University. A warm welcome to all of you. Heather, if we can start with you, let's just start with the central thrust of Brian Eno's thinking saying here that macho posturing has proved to be, he says, worse than useless in the face of an actual threat, the pandemic. What do you think?